Thank you for listening to WJ Talk, the Waterways Journal place for conversations that move the marine and waterways industry forward. The sponsor of this month's interviews is Laborde Products. Laborde Products stands at the forefront of marine engine distribution, committed to delivering excellence as your trusted partner in marine propulsion, featuring top brands like Mitsubishi, Steyr Motors, Yanmar, and Scania Marine. Once again, thanks for listening.
So welcome, Brian. If you could just kind of tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into the maritime industry, and then Laborde Products in general.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Zach. I appreciate the time today and for Waterways Journal reaching out to us and setting this up. Real quickly about my background, I'm actually have a financial background. But my past actually took me into the operations side of the marine industry. So I was working for a company in Houston, Texas, inland towboat and liquid barge company that was actually a customer of Laborde Products. And so I have kind of a unique perspective in the fact that I was a customer before I got involved with Laborde Products. Laborde is and was a family company. It was started by my father back in 1998 with the idea of taking a small engine company that was acquired by my family and ultimately creating an engine company for the commercial marine space. That was always the vision. That was always the drive that my dad had behind the company. I joined the company in about 15 years ago, directly from an operator's standpoint, and joined the company with a perspective to increase not just the performance of the company, but ultimately to create a company that truly partners with the marine industry and how the engines operate. And so, what Laborde Products is we're an engine distribution company. So we represent several engine manufacturers from around the world. The number one engine company that we represent is Mitsubishi. That's our largest brand out of Japan. And then we also represent a much smaller engine out of Austria, a company called Steyr Engines out of Austria. And then as well as a Swedish company called Scania. Which are both of those engine lines are predominantly planing hull engines, higher speed, and then our Mitsubishi line is our rugged, heavy-duty, slow engine that ultimately is ideal for the inland marine industry.
Right.
So many of your readers will know us from the Mitsubishi side, but we're also to complement our commercial marine industry background. We're also in the military business. We do a lot of work with the Navy on some high-speed craft, and we're currently involved in the drone space with the new autonomous drones, the USVs that are becoming very popular. So many of your readers probably don't know that we're in that space as well, but that's a complementary piece of our business.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you guys are in multiple markets, and like you said, many inland and Gulf operators may not know that, but I think that's why you guys are so successful, is because you're able to cater towards those markets. If you could kind of go back and how that initial relationship with Mitsubishi came about.
Yeah, so when my father actually acquired this company, the company was representing Yanmar, another Japanese engine manufacturer. And actually, my father was in Japan meeting with Yanmar about their commercial line and wanted to at the time he only had their recreational line. He wanted to see their commercial product in the United States, and ultimately he had a conversation with them. There was a lot of pushback from Yanmar. On the same trip, he had scheduled to meet with the management of Mitsubishi. Mitsubishi welcomed him with open arms. In Japan, Yanmar and Mitsubishi are fierce competitors. And so Mitsubishi was aware of his relationship with Yanmar. Mitsubishi welcomed him with open arms, and ultimately, got behind his goal of bringing a competitive engine into the U.S. market to truly compete with the Caterpillar and the Cummins in the space that they currently dominated at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of what makes Mitsubishi engines different from other engines out there, especially on the inland system when you need one of those rugged, day in and day out workhorses?
Yeah, so there's a couple things that make the engine unique. Number one is all of the Mitsubishi product is very heavy. It's very well built. There's a lot of steel in the engine, a lot of displacement for the horsepower that's ultimately taken out of the engine. But the number one thing that's unique with respect to Mitsubishi is that Mitsubishi is bringing its engines into the United States for the marine industry. And several years ago, as the entire market was shifting to electronics, Mitsubishi came to us and said, what do your customers want? And our customers at the time, all of our engines were mechanical. Meaning that they had no computers, no wires. They were completely mechanically driven and controlled engines. That was probably the most pivotal decision that was made, was to stay with a mechanical engine, because that's ultimately what our customers wanted. We currently still have a completely mechanical line of engines. We have Tier 4 engines available that are completely mechanical, not a single computer on them. And as we continue, I'll talk to you about some of the things that we're doing that ultimately are going to bring together the mechanical advantages, but also the technology that ultimately will help us kind of bridge the gap in the future.
Right. Yeah. Technology is becoming more important, but those tried and true engines, diesel electric is still prevalent and it's reliable. So, speaking of your customers, and the idea of design build is kind of, they talk about that in infrastructure a lot, but I think you're seeing vendors, operators, and shipyards working together more in the design process. And I think that's something you guys participate in. And if you could kind of talk about that and the efficiency it creates to kind of customizing the solutions for your customers.
Absolutely. The process truly starts at the very beginning of the inception of the idea of a new vessel. For years, our business was driven by repowers. It was older boats that needed new engines, and that was our core business. Several years ago, we saw a major inflection in our business where we were now being selected as the engine for new construction, and that trend has continued to evolve as we've gone forward. And in total population today, we have commanding presence and commanding control of the new construction market in the inland space here in the United States, in the engines that we ultimately have horsepower to deliver. The biggest part of that is not just partnering with the operator. Obviously, the operator is the final decision maker on that, but there's a lot of people in that process, from the naval architects to the shipyards, to ultimately the crews that are going to be managing these vessels at the end of the day. We work to partner with all of those different individuals and companies along the way to ultimately, we strive to be the easiest company to work with. Yep. When they have challenges, when they present a situation to us, we work directly with them to come up with solutions that are mutually beneficial, and try not to take a hard line on it, any one particular subject. We want our customers to have the best vessel possible, but that doesn't mean that we have to be rigid and work without flexibility to ultimately accommodate, the needs of each group along the way.
Right, absolutely. And when it comes to deciding whether to repower or, start a new build program, what are the major deciding factors behind that from the operator's perspective?
You know, we've seen a real shift in this over the last couple of years, and I think the number one thing is cost and economic, and ultimately the economic implications. I think that where many of our customers had standard build programs over the years, where they would build, they would build 4 to 6 boats into their fleet, or add 2 boats to the fleet on an annual basis and sell some of their older assets. We've seen a big shift in that, and I think that just comes down to economics, the amount of money that they can get from their customer versus the actual building cost. Everything is getting more expensive, and so until the market can catch up with the cost of these new assets, we believe that there's going to be a continual shift to extend the life of assets that may have ultimately been sold off. And in the past, where in new assets built, we're seeing a shift where there's a lot of repowers, a lot of rebuilds in older assets that customarily would have been pushed off to a new owner.
Right. Yeah. And how much has, subchapter M and, getting people into that tier 4 level, how much in the past 10 years has that kind of been a part of your business model, so to speak?
The unique thing about subchapter M, what subchapter M has brought for us is a little more planning and a little more structure to a process that allows us to help our customers plan. Whereas prior, in a lot of the engine replacements that we were doing were reactionary. They would have a failure, they need to do something, and it would happen. What subchapter M has allowed is it's brought a little bit of structure to the process, where we know every 5 years those boats are coming in, so we can sit down with the customers and our operators and figure out, okay, what do we want to do with these vessels when they come in? Are we going to repower? Are we going to rebuild the engines? What's your plan? And we can ultimately lean into them, help them plan, help them budget for those changes as they come down the pipe.
Right. And that kind of leads me into my next question is, your dealer network is expanding. The reason behind that, just from my perspective, it helps with sales, but then service as well. So if you can kind of talk about that expansion and, the reasoning behind it.
Absolutely. Look, we currently operate out of 3 operational facilities. We have one in Covington, Louisiana, just across the lake from New Orleans, one in Deer Park, just south of Houston, right next to the ship channel, and then another one in Paducah, Kentucky. I have operational technical teams at each one of those locations. However, our customers are all over the eastern United States, from Maine to South Florida, throughout the Caribbean, and on every inland waterway in the United States, in the eastern United States. And so when our customers have an issue, it's often not right next to one of our facilities. So either my tech team is traveling out to them, but more importantly, we're strategically placing our parts assets throughout those and balancing them through those 3 locations, so that our dealers that are between and outside of those locations have a hub for their parts. Each one of our dealers is required to have trained technicians, required to have parts on hand to support our customers. And as this continues to mature, we'll have more and more of those dots on the map. I think we're in the 30 plus dealers around in the eastern United States right now, and that's growing every day. I have a team that's working on adding those guys every single day, and it's all about putting solutions closer to our customers. When somebody has an issue, time is money, and it's critical that we're there to support them and help them. Uniquely, because of the mechanical nature of our engine, Laborde has a program where we'll not only train our dealers, but we'll train our customers. We'll actually bring our customers in, we'll put them through our technical training, so that their teams, either on the vessels, if they're running engineers, or on the parts side, if they're running parts, will have the ability to or their shoreside teams that are supporting those vessels can actually be the first line of defense. And so, whereas many of our competitors are trying to control the service and support side of the engine business, Laborde's doing the exact opposite. We're trying to empower our customers to be as self-sufficient as they want to be a line of support, and really to partner with Laborde on supporting their engines. We'll always be here to support them. But if it's a simple repair and they can do it themselves, my team's here to support them in doing that and ultimately help them get back to work as quickly as possible.
Yep, absolutely. Kind of shifting to industry trends when it comes to the engine room and propulsion in general. You had talked about, the reliability of a mechanical engine. What do you see in the future, or what are you guys working on to kind of ease in other types of innovation?
Yeah, so the beauty of the mechanical engine is that it doesn't have a computer. It doesn't have the electrical systems to have the issues that drive much of the downtime for our competitors' engines. However, the downside of that is you also don't have access to the level of data that our competitors have the ability to take off their engines. What Laborde is doing to ultimately bridge that gap is we've developed a monitoring system that will ultimately overlay the engine and be able to, through telematics, be able to report on a continual basis the health and ultimately the data that is necessary for us to build customized systems and help our operators truly optimize the way that they perform their maintenance, help flag issues that they may have and catch things before they become catastrophic on an engine. From our side as an engine manufacturer, that same data will teach us about trends in our market and trends on the engines that we have no data on as we sit here today. And so we often don't see an engine until it has, especially from a failure standpoint, until it's absolutely destroyed. And so then it's almost a forensic process for us to go back and figure out exactly what happened. And so our belief is that, and our drive with our new monitoring system is that ultimately we will be able to have the very best and simplest engine on the market with some of the best technology to overlay that engine to be able to optimize the performance of the engine over the life of that engine.
Yeah, the longevity of it. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Now, kind of looking into the future for Laborde, what does that look like? If there's any part of that you're willing to share, because you guys have grown quickly but steadily, and you guys provide good support and a good product for people. So, what does the future look like for you?
Look, I think technology is going to be a big part of the future for us. So much of what is done in the engine space is built off of averages. When to overhaul an engine, when to perform certain maintenance intervals. Yet everything that we're telling people to do is built off of averages, yet every boat is different. Every environment that every boat operates is different. What I see as the next big step for us is truly strengthening the partnership that we have with our operators through the technology that we're working with, the continual growth of our engines in the market, to truly partner with our operators to build customized systems that allow them to extend the life of their engine assets, but truly optimize that asset for the life that it's living. Whether it's pushing on the river, whether it's pushing in the ditch, whether it's pushing 10s or 30s, all of these things will change how an engine ultimately needs to be cared for and operated. And so I think a big part of the future with us is building and deploying systems that help our partners and the operators of our equipment truly optimize the way that they run their businesses, the way they care for their engines, and the amount of information that they have to make those decisions on on when to do certain things with the equipment.
Yeah, yeah. And kind of leads me into my final question is, because you work in multiple markets, is there anything you can learn from one market and take to another one and vice versa?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, on the USV side of the market, we're working with full autonomy. We're working with cameras. We're working with infrared. We're working with tech stacks, and to say that the inland and really the maritime industry as a whole in the United States is way behind the curve is an understatement. There's tons of technology out there that we can incorporate where we're not replacing seamen, we're not necessarily replacing jobs, but we're drastically improving efficiency in how things are done, and we're learning a lot in the drone space that I believe will be very applicable in the inland space as we start to integrate AI and different tools into the inland space as that technology continues to develop.
Cool. Okay. Well, Brian, I really appreciate you being on, provided a lot of insight, and thanks for being a good partner of ours as always, and hope that your week goes well, and we'll get this over to you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Zach. And likewise, just like Laborde, Waterways Journal is a great partner with the industry, bringing a lot of value to the market. So thank you for all that y'all do.
Yep, absolutely. We appreciate it. Thank you.
All right.
Yep.
Thanks a lot.
See ya.